everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kayla and it's time to crack into a good book. So today's video is going to be a bit of like a life update and like what have I been reading since I last did a weekly update. So some of these books, let's see, there's some from the end of May, but also what I read in June. So I basically did not read that much in June. It was not a good reading month for me. I just have I had a whole bunch of stuff going on. I went to Hawaii with my family and that was great. I, got to see my parents, my sister and nephew also came out, and then Ivy came out. So it was really fun. It was, great to see everybody, but it was also wonderful to just like get outside. We got to swim in the ocean, which was wonderful. We got to do some scuba diving, so that was great. So I had kind of intended to maybe do a vacation vlog, and that really just didn't happen. So I think, having that break from filming booktube videos was really great for me. I ended up filming 30 seconds of a sunset. So I'll try to remember to insert that video clip so you can at least see that. I was obviously busy doing vacation things. We were just out and about a lot, but my free time was mostly taken up by doing, stuff for my dissertation. I had a lot of interviews, and I guess that was, the last week of June when I didn't post anything? I don't know. I can't keep track of time anymore. But yeah, so I had a ton of job interviews, and I actually got a job offer. So then the past week up until this last Thursday, I was trying to figure out which of the two job offers I had received I wanted to take. So that was kind of stressful, lots of big life decisions going on basically, but I have accepted one of the jobs, so we'll be staying in the area. Basically, it came down to a job here at one of the universities versus one in Colorado, and it was just with my defense coming up and just generally stressful things, we kind of thought that it would be better to stay here. I'm excited about it. It's essentially a collaborative biostatistician position, so I will be working on, the stats stuff for anything that some of the doctors need, I guess. So I'm mostly going to be working with the Department of Head and Neck Surgery, I think, to begin with, and I know there's a pretty big clinical trial that they've just started, and I think they're looking at hearing aid usage and whether or not using one versus two hearing aids can kind of affect your outcomes. But yeah, so I'm excited about it. I think it'll be really great, and I'm excited to finally be graduating. My defense is Wednesday, so yeah, basically I've been doing a lot of stuff lately, most of which has not been reading, but it just it has to be done. Booktube and reading are just hobbies, and these big life decisions are obviously much more important. I've worked the past 7 years on getting my PhD, so kind of being able to wrap that up and have a job lined up is rather important. So yeah, lots of exciting things on my end. So my general plan here, I've read 11 books, I think, that I haven't wrapped up yet at the time that I'm filming this. So I think my general plan is to kind of keep things a little bit more manageable for myself and split it up into a couple different videos. So before we get started, leave a spaceship emoji in the comments to let me know that you're here. So the first book I'm going to talk about, I technically rated it 1.5 stars, but I did decide to DNF this. I made it to 282 pages out of 788. And I just can't take it anymore. So this is Offarmageddon Reef by David Weber. So this is an adult sci-fi, but also maybe fantasy, where this alien race essentially kills people with advanced technology, and so humanity flees to this planet's safehold and essentially suppresses math and science, kind of reverts to ye olden times. So the main thing here for me, the pacing is horrendously slow. The prologue is great. That was fine. But then I swear to God, up until this point where I decided to DNF, the plot can basically be summarized as assassination attempt. People are oh, it's probably this guy who orchestrated it. And then other people are no, it's not. And then they're oh, but it is. That's literally it. Like, oh my god, I can't take it. Lots of detail about some things, like, I don't know, there was like a page and a half about how an abacus works, and I just like, I can't handle this slow pace right now. There's also like a lot of religious themes, which I just really don't care for. I mean, there are reasons for it, but I don't like it. I don't want to read about it. I flipped ahead and there was a kraken battle, like, I don't know, 70 pages away from where I was, but like, I'm not motivated to even get to that point, which is kind of saying something because, you know, kraken battles are, you know, very appealing to me. I also just don't care at all about the characters, and like, I really hate the stupid spellings. Like, yeah, I kind of wrote this in my Goodreads brief review, I guess, of this, but like, Benjamin is spelled like Bynzhamyn, and like, George is Zhorzh, and it's just like, wholly unnecessary spellings, and it like got to the point where I was like actively irritated whenever I read that shit, and I was like, I cannot handle it. And so then, I mean, this kind of like verges on spoiler territory, so I guess if you don't really want to hear spoilery things, skip ahead to the next book. But so this is supposed to be like a kind of King Arthur retelling, I guess, I don't know, but we have this female character, Nimue, who is then like, so that she existed in the prologue, but then like, I guess actually died, but her consciousness lives on in this android body as Merlin, so like, she is now choosing to be male. So then we have Merlin, who is this male presenting character, and so there's kind of this like transgender identity that I didn't think was going to be explored or done particularly well. So I was actually talking to my best friend about this because I was like, I vaguely remember him saying that he had read this, and I was like, okay, so how is this series? And I think he had said he read the first like 4 or 5 of them and like was like, I don't know if I'd recommend it necessarily, but he specifically mentioned that he recalls a mention, I don't know if it's in this particular book or one of the other ones, that Merlin sees the prince naked and is then aroused, but then just literally turns off his robot penis, so yay, I guess that's it. But yeah, so I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that at all. So yeah, we just need to DNF it. And I mean, at least, like, I'm pretty sure I got this as, like, a buy 2, get 1 free type thing as the free book, so, like, whatever. But hopefully I can sell it and actually, like, make some money off of it. But, dear God, I cannot take this. So, yeah, personally, I would not recommend this book. It is way too slow and just, I don't care. So now that we have made it past that awful book, we'll talk about a 3-star book now, and that's Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. So this is a YA mystery, and it's set at this Ellingham Academy, which is this private school founded by a tycoon who loved like puzzles, games, riddles, etc. So, you know, after he's founded the school, his wife and daughter end up being kidnapped, and the only clue is this riddle left by Truly Devious about murder. So then years later, we follow Stevie, who is this true crime aficionado who goes to the school, and she's determined to solve this cold case. So, like, will say I'm glad that I borrowed this from the library. It's like a very strange book. Like, I think the pacing is okay, but it took me forever to read it. Like, again, this was kind of, I was reading it at the time, I was very distracted, so, like, kind of take this review with a grain of salt, I guess. But, you know, I think I still have a lot of unanswered questions, and I felt a little bit disappointed that, you know, this particular plot didn't cover more. I think this premise is really interesting, though, and I really like that setting. And I think there's a lot of really great moments exploring this, especially at the beginning. I just generally love the idea of the school, you know, and all of its hidden secrets. However, it has the most, like, horrendous and unnecessary romance. I hated the romance so much. Oh boy. Apparently that we're going to be, like, ranting a little bit in these reviews today. But, yeah, so the love interest is this shitty guy who, like, gaslights and manipulates Stevie, our main character, and kind of has this, you know, I know what's best type of attitude. I think it just generally felt really out of place with this story and really detracted from this main mystery, which is obviously much more interesting. I think Stevie is okay as a main character in general. I liked that, you know, she's into true crime, and I think there's a lot of good representation for her with anxiety and panic attacks. However, again, don't understand at all why she's at all interested in this love interest. Like, I don't get it. I don't like it. I don't want it. But yeah, I mean, I think She is mostly somewhat bland and forgettable for me, honestly. Like, I was trying to write down my reviews today, and yeah, I was like, I had a hard time coming up with anything to say about her other than, you know, what I have already said. So, I don't know. She's okay. I'm not really sure about continuing the series because this romance is truly atrocious, but I still at the same time, like, really want to know what's going on with this mystery, and so that's why I was like, okay, well, you know, I think some of this was more of like a 2-star book for me, but then like the fact that I still wanted to keep reading it and like want to know what's going on with this mystery bumped it up to a 3-star for me. So yeah, I mean, I think this is middle of the road. I'm really glad that I borrowed it from the library. I think some people have higher opinions of this than I do, but for me, I think the main thing that really detracted from my enjoyment was this romance. It is so bad. I hate it so much. So now we'll go ahead and move on to a 3.5-star book, and that's The Boneway by Holly J. Underhill. So I received this for review from the publisher through NetGalley, and this actually recently came out June 26th. So this is an adult fantasy / kind of sapphic retelling of Orpheus and Eurydice. So I thought this was pretty fun. I will say it is not an exact retelling because there are actually nods within this story to that other story with Orpheus, and I found those to be pretty amusing, and I enjoyed that. I thought that was like a very fun touch. I think it's very easy to read. We have, you know, 2 different timelines here. So there's the present, and then we also have some flashbacks and more like mythological type folklore, I guess, trying to establish this princess who's in the underworld. I do think it probably would have worked better for me if it had just moved linearly through the story, but, you know, like, I wasn't terribly bothered by this. I really liked the Boneway itself. I thought this was a very neat idea, and just generally, you know, the description of the underworld with this vengeful shadow princess was awesome. I think there are a lot of really great ideas here with all these different areas along the journey. I think they're, you know, quite cool. I liked all the different creatures and threats that they faced along the way and how that kind of varies a little bit with, you know, the different areas. I do think the conflict was solved way too easily, and I think I probably would have preferred for this to be a full-length novel versus a novella to really develop the relationships between the characters and just generally, like, have higher stakes. In terms of our characters, I did like Tegan, the main character. I think with her character in particular, you actually get to really explore this idea of what happens when someone you love is diagnosed with a fatal disease and like how to handle it, especially when, you know, it comes down to what that person really wants. And so there's a lot of, I think, heavier themes here, but I thought this was pretty well done, and I liked exploring this idea. Her wife, Cress, I will say I just like didn't really get a good feel for her. Like, I don't think I really cared about her as much as I might have wanted, but I did just generally like their relationship overall. I think in general this is a very readable, I think, lighter type of fantasy, certainly a quick read, so if that's what you're in the mood for, I would definitely recommend this. So now we'll get into some 4-star books. First 2 I'll talk about, I guess, are Heartstopper Volume 2 and Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. We'll start with Volume 2. So I did actually read these directly after I read the first volume because I was like, I just need to know what the story is now. So it's this very cute graphic novel series about Nick and Charlie, who are 2 friends who might be something more. So in this particular volume, I think Nick is really trying to figure out his sexuality and trying to decide if he's bi or just generally like how he identifies. Charlie and Nick are trying to figure out their relationship. And again, this was just so cute. So it does tackle things like, you know, coming out and just being outed, also homophobia in general. I liked getting to see more of their friends here too. We have a lesbian couple, there's a transgender character, so, you know, generally speaking, there's a lot of really great representation here. Nick is in a pretty tough place, I think, as he realizes that some of his friends aren't very nice or supportive. So, you know, I think this is tough to see. Like, it's always heartbreaking to see, you know, this sort of like, oh god, my friends aren't there to support me. Like, that's tough, but I'm glad that he's able to realize it and, you know, figure out what he wants to do. I generally love the relationship here between Nick and Charlie and just how cute they are together. I think there's, again, lots of really great representation. It's a wonderful story. The art style is great. And I think there's just a lot of really potentially relatable things for a lot of people, especially in high school. Like, I think there's a lot of just reasonable, realistic struggles that our characters go through. And yeah, I mean, this was super cute. So then we'll jump into Volume 3, also a 4-star book for me. So our characters are on a school trip to Paris, and they're trying to decide if they want people to know about them and their relationship. And they also have their own personal struggles going on. So I thought this was super fun to see them actually go on a school trip. I had kind of forgotten that this was in England. And I was like, oh right, you can just like easily drive to Paris. I don't know, I guess for some reason I was like expecting them to get on a plane, because that's obviously like what you would have to do flying from, you know, the US to Paris. And so that was kind of like, oh right, duh, that was dumb of me. So I had a little laugh at myself. I think this tackles some more issues here in a really supportive manner, and just like really, I mean, I think it's really important to be able to explore these kinds of ideas. Nick and Charlie are getting to know each other more, and I think are starting to get more comfortable in their relationship. So this is so adorable. They're so supportive of each other, and like want each other to be very happy and comfortable with everything that they do. Nick, you know, is worried that Charlie isn't taking care of himself, and we do get to learn more about like Nick's family. His father is not super present, and we do get to meet his brother, who just isn't very nice or understanding. I think there's a lot of really great discussions here about things like, you know, who you're dating, unless you want to share that. So again, I think this is like really great discussions of topics here. Lots of really great representation again. I really liked getting to know the side characters here, like Tara, Darcy, Tao, Elle, and Aled. I think they all seem very nice and supportive, and I just like their relationships as well. We also have like 2 teachers on the trip, and I just like really rooted for them. I liked them. I don't know, it was cute. There are some content warnings here for self-harm and eating disorders. So again, kind of like tackling these tough topics. Like, I think this is a darker themed installment of this series. I think it does a good job considering these types of things, and I just generally like appreciate more of you know, exploring these mental health type topics. So this is really cute. I definitely will keep reading this series and would recommend it for sure. The next 4-star book I'll talk about is Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. So this is a YA fantasy, and this is the 5th book in the Throne of Glass series. Aelin is on her quest to reclaim her throne. You know, we've got war looming, and we have monsters emerging, and these dark forces trying to claim the world. So they have to set off on a desperate quest. So this is actually my favorite book in the series so far. I was really impressed and surprised by how much I enjoyed it. Partly, you know, like I have to wonder, it's just maybe just reading it at the right time. Like this was exactly what I needed to read. Kind of not, I mean, doesn't require as much thought as other books perhaps, but it's, you know, really enjoyable, easy to read, sort of light reading. Yeah, really perfect for what I need. So I think there are a lot of really exciting action scenes here, including some sea battles, so I really liked that. I didn't get that same sort of feeling that I've talked about with some of the previous books where I struggled to get through some sections. You know, I think this all worked a lot better for me. I think there are a couple of times where it does feel like it's working really hard to not really get anywhere, but I just generally still feel satisfied with the overall story, and I definitely want to know what happens next. It seems like it's transitioning to being more like adult content, especially like we have some explicit content in general, so I have to wonder if like this sort of transition is what helps me like it more, because like I definitely like the Court of Thorns and Roses series in general a lot more than this, and so I think like switching this type of tone may contribute to like how much I liked this. This also definitely has some things that I didn't expect, so that was fun. I'm really glad that Kale wasn't in this. Like I've not really made it a secret here with how much I just dislike Kale. I really liked all the different pieces of the story here, especially Manon. I think in terms of our characters, Alid is interesting, and I liked getting to spend more time with her. You know, we got to see her, I guess, in the previous book, but I think this really demonstrates how clever she is and how much of a survivor she is, and she's like, you know, I don't know, I feel like her character arc is interesting. She's starting to take charge a little bit more and just generally stand up for herself more. So that's been fun to see. I think with Aelin, again, just she's really come a long way from the beginning. We get to see her schemes, cleverness, and like willingness to do whatever it takes to save everyone. I certainly continue to enjoy her relationship with Rowan. I will say there's a bit of this like possessive fae male type stuff that you kind of see in some of her other books. So like, I don't know, you see it with Rowan and some of the others. I'm not particularly surprised that this has come up again. So like I kind of went in expecting this, and so I think I wasn't really like bothered by it, but I think this is going to be a little bit more hit or miss for some people. Manon is my favorite. She's awesome. I think here she's facing some new facts about herself, and I'm really excited to see where her journey leads. Again, we see Dorian, and he's more of a secondary character here, but I like his development with some of his abilities. And, you know, again, like, Lysandra was really great, and so I'm kind of impressed with how I've changed my mind on her, and just, like, generally speaking, Sarah J. Maas has kind of impressed me with her ability to make me go from, like, somebody that I don't really like to actually caring about them. So I'm curious to see how that, you know, works with Cale in the next book, because it's mostly focused on him, so we'll see. Hopefully I will tolerate him. I don't know. I really don't know what to expect. So generally, I think there's a lot of strong ladies here, which I like to see. It does seem like everybody is going to be paired off with relationships, but, like, honestly, I kind of enjoy these combinations anyway, so I'm not, like, terribly bothered by this, but this is something where I think your mileage may vary. I mean, I don't know if everybody needs to be paired off in a relationship, whatever, but I'm gonna roll with it. I'm here for it. I'm definitely excited to see what happens next, especially, I think, like, everything is coming together. In particular, we actually do get to see some of the people mentioned in that short story collection, so that was exciting. You know, like, when I had read that collection, I was like, okay, well, surely this is gonna come back at some point and, like, affect things, because otherwise, who cares? But, yeah, we actually do get to see that here, and so that was really cool, and, like, immensely satisfying, I guess. So the last book I'll talk about today is a 4.5-star book, and that's Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So this is an adult sci-fi thriller where our main character, Ryland, is the sole survivor on this last chance mission to save the Earth. So he wakes up alone with these missing memories, and so he's, like, trying to piece together how he got there and what he's supposed to do. So this was so good. I think it's definitely fast-paced with a similar tone to The Martian, which I absolutely loved. Like, I do think I preferred The Martian slightly to this, but this is still, like, a very good book. I loved it. We have some very stressful situations in here where you just, like, have to keep reading, and it's, like, a very quick read. I kept, like, you know, I read it on Kindle, obviously, so I'm like, let me just tap my Kindle. I got to turn the page. Got to keep reading. It's, like, this humorous type of tone, and it does have a lot of science and math. You know, I think I really enjoyed this being more, like, science and math inclined, but I think this could maybe be a bit too much at times for others. Like, I think compared to The Martian, this had more in the way of these, like, science and math heavy discussions, I guess. But, like, at the same time, I think I'm familiar with a lot of the concepts, so it's hard for me to say if this would be approachable for people who aren't as, like, math and science inclined. I feel like it is, but again, your mileage may vary with that. This took a turn that I didn't expect, and I just really love this development. I'm going to kind of keep that vague so I don't spoil things, but I thought this was a really interesting idea that I just loved exploring. Ryland, I think, is similar to Mark Watney from The Martian, but is a little bit less heroic. Kind of. in places. I think he's not quite as likable in general, but I still, like, really enjoyed him as a character, and I thought his character arc was immensely satisfying. He certainly knows his stuff and can improvise very well, which is a useful quality, you know, when you're on this spaceship alone. There are some flashbacks here, and I thought they were pretty nicely done. It was enjoyable. You know, he's starting to remember what happened to him before, and I think this really helps to establish the tone of, like, we have to get this done. You know, this is a very important mission. So yeah, I really enjoyed his personal journey and where he ends up. There's particular story elements that were absolutely wonderful. Again, can't really mention them to avoid spoilers, but they were great. So those are all the books that I'm going to talk about today. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books or think you might pick them up. And for your question of the day, I don't know, have you read or watched The Martian? That's, like, a weirdly specific question. I really enjoyed both the book and the movie, which is really interesting. Like, I think that was a particularly well done adaptation, probably one of my favorites. So yeah, we'll roll with that. Sure, why not? Anyway, I do have a Discord channel, and if you want to join that, the link is in the description below. I hope you're all having an excellent day and are reading something awesome. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, as that would certainly help me out. But with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up here and see you in the next one.